Lots to unpack on the diplomatic front. Let's dive right into it. We're honored to have with us tonight Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Babe Romualdez. Good evening, Ambassador Romualdez. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Hi, good evening, good morning to me. Thank you.
And good morning to you, that's right. Uh,
Yes.
I wonder if we could kick off from the last news item that I just read. The Quad leaders expressing serious concerns over China's coercive and intimidating actions in the South China Sea. Although they didn't make direct mention of China, it wasn't until much later that U.S. President Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic saying that China is testing us all in the region. I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, there's no question about it that China is not only testing the Quad, but also even the Philippines. Quite obviously, that we're being tested almost every day in our territorial waters. But we are using maximum restraint, and the president's made it clear that we will do what we need to do in supplying, especially the Sierra Madre, and continue to patrol our own territorial waters without necessarily creating any conflict. However, as our Secretary of Defense said, we will continue and we will not stop because, as far as we're concerned, we're doing what is right, which is what is rightfully ours.
Tell us what was the reaction inside the room when President Joe Biden was caught or heard saying that China is testing us?
Well, I don't think there was really any major. He publicly even said it already in the end anyway that indeed China is testing not only the Quad, but as I said, the entire world, the free world that is really very much against the kind of aggressive behavior that China has been doing in the South China Sea. That's precisely the reason why we continue to reach out to as many countries as possible into seeing our point that we want to try to resolve all these issues in a very civil and a very peaceful way as much as we can, just like what the United States and other countries are doing.
Ambassador, reports are saying that at least 20 countries plan to hold a summit on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, and one of the topics could be about, China's behavior. Could you confirm that to us?
Well, I mentioned that in a forum that it is not really a summit, but more of a get together of like-minded countries to try to look into, well, one thing for sure, maritime security and maritime safety, which includes, of course, the South China Sea. And there's a very clear indication that the United Nations will be able to do that. That's the reason why the head of delegation, Secretary Ricky Manalo, will be there, and I will be also going to New York this coming week to join him. And perhaps we'll be able to move around at the United Nations to be able to talk to as many countries as possible, again, on the issue of maritime security and maritime safety.
Do we know at this point which countries are joining this side summit?
Well, that's still being worked out right now. I can't really have any clear indication, but there are quite a number of countries, as I said, who are supporting our efforts into trying to resolve the issues diplomatically, or at least, at the very least, we're trying to just simply getting countries to continue to do what they're doing, which is to really shout out some of these things that are happening in our shores, not only in the territorial waters of the Philippines, but in the entire South China Sea.
And again, the end goal for this side summit, if it does happen, is specifically to draw attention to the West Philippine Sea. Is that correct, or is there a broader objective to this?
Well, it's not necessarily. Like I said, the broader picture is that maritime security is probably, it covers almost an entire area of the Indo-Pacific region. And these waters are supposed to be free from any kind of harassment or any kind of any country that can dominate the area. This is basically the whole idea of why we are very concerned. The concern of many countries as well, because this covers a wide range of freedom of navigation, which is trillions of dollars in trade that passes through these straits.
In the Quad meeting, was there any talk about the Philippines and what do we stand to gain in terms of their support to this part of the region, and what does this mean for the Philippines really?
Well, there's no specific mention of the Philippines, but the fact that they mentioned South China Sea, clearly the concern of the Quad is, includes the Philippines, and that is again in relation to what is happening in our shores. Basically, the recent incidents that happened with China. So that's a major concern for the world, because this is really will affect in the long term on how the world would look like in terms of if we do not do anything about it today, then certainly this is going to be something that will that the whole world will regret, because it is a major area, a major free trade area, and it's important that this place remains free and secure.
We do know that President Joe Biden is ending his term with the elections coming up. Has there been any posturing from the president when it comes to passing it down, or his foreign policy to his successor? Is he trying to have his final notes with these meetings, with these trilateral, multilateral meetings?
Well, definitely. This Quad meeting, many have told us that this is precisely what President Biden is trying to do, is to make it clearly an institution, to what we might call it an institution, because of the alliance of these four nations, these four important nations, to work together in, again, securing the Indo-Pacific region. So I think the purpose for this whole of thing is just, for one thing, I think President Biden is basically saying goodbye to the leaders who, like him, will probably be not in office anymore next year.
And actually, maybe the next question to that is there enough bipartisan awareness of the situation in Capitol Hill, right? Because you, Ambassador, as well, has been quoted before as saying that the West Philippine Sea might, at this point, be a bigger flashpoint than Taiwan. And so I was wondering, do the U.S. officials you speak to share that point of view?
Oh, definitely. There is no doubt that we have, for one thing, we have a very strong bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress. I've talked to so many of our friends in the U.S. Congress, and every single one of them has expressed their major concern. They asked me, what can we do for the Philippines to be able to support them in to secure our territorial waters? And I think that's the clear indication of that is the 500 million that was recently approved and was announced by Secretary Lloyd Austin when he was in Manila last July. So that one, again, is a clear indication of very strong bipartisan support. And I'm very confident that if and when a new administration comes into play here in Washington, D.C., we're going to get the same kind of support.
Speaking of help, you're right, various U.S. officials have offered to help the Philippines as far as resupply missions to the West Philippine Sea, the last one being the commander of the Indo-Pacific Command, no less than Admiral Samuel Paparo, when he came to visit. As far as you know, has the Philippines ever taken up this offer, and should we?
Well, these are Admiral Sam Paparo, who's a good friend of mine, came to Washington, D.C. before he went to Manila, and we discussed at length a lot of things that the United States can do. These are just simply just options that are being made available to us in the event of any major conflict that may, or even just to as a sign that the United States is fully committed to the Mutual Defense Treaty. I think he's had some very good discussions with not only with President Marcos, but with Secretary Tudoro and our National Security Advisor, Ed Año. And they've looked at all the options that are being made available to us. And it's really up to us whether we want to use that as an alternative to what's happening. But as I said, the president made it very clear that we're doing this on our own. We're doing as much as we can to make sure that we do not bring this level of conflict into something that obviously is going to be a higher tension that we're all trying to avoid at this time.
Ambassador, is it true that according to the Mutual Defense Treaty, there needs to be consultations happening before a U.S. fleet can join us in patrols over pockets in the West Philippine Sea, such as the Escoda Shoal or Ayungin Shoal? Is it true that consultations need to happen first? That's why we can't go that direction? Or are joint patrols also in the buffet of options?
Well, let's put it this way. Those are formalities that probably need to take place. But at the end of the day, the fact that we have already, both our countries have already made it clear that we are fully committed to the Mutual Defense Treaty will not really mean a lot of what we call bureaucratic tape to be able to get it moving. So it's really a question of us saying that we want to, or if something happens, and so the Mutual Defense Treaty will kick in almost automatically because it is a commitment by the United States, and it's also our commitment. And by the way, we want to make it clear that one of the things that we're doing right now, which is why we're bumping it up and the United States is helping us, being a major ally, is to really modernize our armed forces. I saw in your report the Teresa Mabanwa is one of those ships that's now being repaired. But we're getting more of these types of ships, not only from the United States, but from our friend and ally Japan and then South Korea and perhaps other countries that we were able to purchase some of these things to be able to precisely defend ourselves and be a real partner if there is going to be a major problem in our area.
Well, there are pundits saying that the $500 million support of the United States is a little bit small compared to their defense budget, and it might not be enough to give us the support we need. It does seem that it is taking time to provide us with material support out in the sea. So do we have a timeline for this? When do we start seeing?
We will never be able to satisfy everybody. There's always going to be somebody who's going to say that this is not enough and whatever. The bottom line is that there is commitment coming from the United States at this time. And the $500 million is just the beginning of what we see as a long-term plan for them to continue to assist us in modernizing our armed forces. It takes time to do all of these things. And obviously, we cannot absorb a large amount in one shot. So it's going to come in different phases and perhaps in the next 3 to 4 years. But at the end of the day, what's important is it is our resolve to be able to really modernize our armed forces. And I can tell you that in my conversations with Secretary Teodoro, we are really on the way to modernizing our armed forces. This time, it's going to be major, and before the end of the term of President Marcos, I think we'll be ready to really be a real partner to many of our allies and friends.
Can I just clarify one thing, Ambassador? This $500 million in defense aid, in what form will that take? Do we know?
Well, it comes in many ways. As I said, we for one thing, we have to have a clear security system, which is the foundation of the relationship we have with the United States. You know, interoperability, meaning to say that, just to give you just a small example, is we cannot be a partner in intelligence sharing if we do not have our systems working together. You know, like a technology, you have to have a system that is in place. But there are just so many of these things that we can do just to begin with this $500 million. And there is a commitment to bring this up to a level that I think is going to be very substantial. I've spoken to many of our friends here in the U.S. Senate. Senator Haggerty is one of those that is pushing hard for a $500 million yearly assistance to modernize our armed forces. So it's going to take time, as I said. But at the end of the day, we are going to be ready and able in about 3 to 4 years from now.
Right. So it could be technology, it could be military assets, not necessarily
A lot of these
all
things,
in
yes.
cash, right?
Yes, it's a whole mixture of technology,
Economic.
major assets that we use for our armed forces, our Air Force, our Coast Guard, our Navy, and our Marines and Army.
Ambassador, the U.S. presidential elections is happening very soon. You think this commitment from the United States would continue? As you said, it would take time, regardless of whoever wins.
Oh, yes. As I said, there's bipartisan support. And fortunately for me, I was here when President Trump was the president. I presented my credentials to him. So I did meet many of the people who work with him. And I can see that they most likely will play a role if he does go back to the White House. So I think will give me an indication that we will get the kind of support that we've had since I've been here in Washington D.C. And obviously, the current administration of President Biden, there is also a clear indication that those that are working in his administration will most likely, most of them, may join the administration of Vice President Harris if she becomes the president of the United States.
And then lastly, if my co-anchors don't have any more questions on West Philippine Sea, just one last very quick question, Ambassador. This has nothing to do with West Philippine Sea. I wonder if you could update us on the case of Apollo Kibuloy, on whether or not the U.S. has made any formal request for his extradition yet. Do you know?
Well, I know that they would like to give an extradition request to the Philippines. It is supposed to go to the Department of Foreign Affairs and to the Department of Justice. But however, I think the president's already made it clear that he would like to have Apollo Kibuloy face the charges first in the Philippines before we entertain any kind of extradition request. The United States, of course, is well aware of that. And since they are a friendly ally of the Philippines, they will obviously not only respect our laws, but also respect whatever it is that we would like to do as far as the cases are concerned. But not to say that this extradition request it will definitely not go away. I think he has to face quite a number of cases here in the United States. And as I've said on many occasions, human trafficking and sex trafficking is a major international crime that many countries all over the world have totally been on top of it, in the sense that they really are after people who are involved in human trafficking and sex trafficking, because it's a growing concern for many countries that young ladies and then perhaps even males are being kidnapped and used as sex slaves.
Right, but as of this moment, there's been no formal request yet. We're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for indulging us tonight. Well, this morning, your time. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Babe Romualdez.